Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining me today. Today, I want to talk a little bit about small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, otherwise known as SIBO. This is something that we are finding more and more our population is really struggling with due to a number of environmental factors and the foods that we eat today. So I just want to discuss what exactly SIBO is and what it means for us who have it. So small intestinal bacterial overgrowth is an overpopulation of bacteria in the intestinal tract. So it's normal for us to have a large amount of microbes in our gut, but what happens is they'll actually migrate from the large intestine where they're supposed to be, and they'll migrate up to the small intestine, and they'll begin to ferment foods before they're ready to be fermented by these bacteria. So this results in things like gas and bloating because you have that gas buildup in the small intestine versus happening in the large intestine after the food has been broken down more. So SIBO actually damages the intestinal lining and creates a state of mild to severe leaky gut syndrome, and this results in a lot of things like food allergies, sensitivities, chronic inflammation, things of that nature. So it is extremely important to get the proper help that you need, as well as good nutrition and lifestyle strategies to help you overcome this. And a lot of times finding a functional nutrition practitioner is necessary in order to take the right steps. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Haley Gibson. I'm a registered nurse and functional nutritionist. I work alongside Dr. David Jockers at Exodus Health Center, as well as drjockers.com. We help clients from all over the world, locally and long distance, and we help people get to the root cause of their problems and help them through the process of overcoming those problems. This is just a little bit about my life. You can see bottom left-hand corner, that is a picture of myself with a group of friends. Most of them are nursing friends, and we did a savage race, had a lot of fun. It was a little cold that day, but it was still a lot of fun. To the right, you can see myself with my now fiance. We got engaged in Colorado, totally surprised. So we are planning a wedding and really excited to be moving forward together. So let's talk some more about SIBO. So this slide kind of puts it in a good way for you to visualize what's happening with SIBO. So the duodenum and the jejunum are close to the stomach, and they have small amounts of bacteria. So you can see up in the top picture, this is what is considered normal. As we go through the intestine, you can see that the amount of fermentation should decrease, but what happens is the bacteria, you can see where it's green, down in the bottom picture it's more green. That indicates bacteria growing up closer to the stomach and fermenting these foods before they should be fermented. So the distal ileum is what's considered a transition zone between sparse populations of aerobic bacteria of the proximal small intestine and very dense populations of anaerobic microorganisms in the large bowel. So basically what that means is there should be a separation of where the bacteria are and what type are in each portion of the intestinal tract. So any imbalance or increase in the amount of bacteria in the jejunum and ileum, which are up closer to the stomach, this can result in what is considered SIBO. A lot of doctors are starting to recognize irritable bowel syndrome as being SIBO related. So SIBO leads to both maldigestion and malabsorption because bacteria actually interfere with the normal breakdown process and the activity of the small intestine. For instance, say you're eating all the right things, you're eating healthy, and you're like, well, I'm not getting my B vitamins still, my numbers are the same, or I'm not feeling any better, I'm still gassy, I'm still bloated, I don't understand, I'm eating broccoli and I'm just not getting better, I don't get it. Well, this can be because of bacterial imbalances in the gut. So there are specific diets that we do to help with this, and we'll get into more of that later. Whenever we do have small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, a lot of times they're secreting toxins that are inflammatory, and they're also causing an increase in cytokines, which can cause inflammation. So this is a very vicious cycle. So iron is something that is absorbed in the duodenum and the jejunum. Once again, that is up closer to the stomach. And whenever we have bacterial overgrowth up into these areas, they can interfere with the absorption of iron. So say that you do eat grass-fed beef, or you eat liver, or you have a good iron supplement, something like that. If you have bacterial overgrowth up into this area of your small intestine, then you're not going to absorb iron appropriately, and you can actually become anemic, which is a very big problem today. B12 is absorbed in the lower intestine. However, it does require a good balance of microbes. So if we have some kind of dysbiosis going on, harmful pathogen present, or not the correct kind of pathogen that we need, bacteria that we need, then this can result in a decreased absorption of B12, leading to something called megaloblastic anemia, which is still an impaired red blood cell, and this can also lead to heart damage. So we want to be really on top of our gut microbiome and make sure that we get it corrected to prevent anything from happening in the future. So 10 symptoms often seen with SIBO include gas, bloating, diarrhea, and/or constipation. Sometimes it's alternating, depending on the type of bacteria we have. Abdominal pain or cramping, skin disorders such as eczema and rosacea. This can be related to the gut bacteria that you have. Irritable bowel syndrome, food intolerance, especially gluten, casein, lactose, fructose, and several others, but those are really some of the main ones. Chronic illnesses such as fibromyalgia. Fibromyalgia has become really common amongst people around 50 years old and older. And a lot of times this can be due to either a lack of the right bacteria or an overgrowth of the wrong bacteria. Chronic fatigue syndrome, autoimmune diseases, diabetes, neuromuscular disorders, B12 deficiency is something I mentioned. You can also have a deficiency in other vitamins and minerals. Magnesium is a very common one. Fat malabsorption is also an issue. We need fat to create healthy hormones and healthy cells and give us good permeability. That way we can take in nutrients well and excrete our toxic waste well. So we want to have a good fluid membrane. Well, we need healthy fats for this. So if we're not absorbing those, then we have a problem. So this slide just kind of tells us a few things that can go wrong, and I wanted to touch on these things because we can actually test for these. I see organic acid tests nearly every day, and I see people who have bacterial overgrowth, and these are some of the things that I see. So it can cause, depending on the toxins secreted by a bacteria, it can cause inflammation, mitochondrial impairment, or increased sensitization to pain. And I can see this on a few markers on the organic acid test where we'll have mitochondrial impairment or inflammation as well as bacterial overgrowth, and they all go hand in hand together. So that is one way that SIBO can actually cause fibromyalgia, is to interfere with our sensitivity to pain. Another thing that it does, it can produce something called a neurotoxin or metabolic poison, and this can cause fatigue, muscle pain, and also interfere with the way that we think. So that is one way that bacteria can also cause fibromyalgia. Another thing that we see is down there at the bottom where you see bacteria produce tryptophanase. So this leads to what is known as a tryptophan deficiency, and we need tryptophan to create our neurotransmitter serotonin. Serotonin is heavily involved in regulating our sleep, our appetite, and our mood. So if we have a deficiency in this, we may begin to feel anxious, have some type of sleep disturbance, feel fatigued throughout the day, or maybe have a lack of interest in things. We would also maybe have carbohydrate cravings and depression. So this can be related to a type of bacteria that's present, and this is a very common finding on the organic acid test. I see this one a lot. So with overgrowth or an excess An excess of waste is also produced, and this causes the buildup of methane and sulfur-based gases that result in the symptoms mentioned earlier. Many physicians now believe that irritable bowel syndrome, which has always had a loose definition, is now better understood as SIBO. SIBO is also known to be associated with celiac disease, fibromyalgia, autoimmune disorders, rosacea, liver problems, gallstones, and gastritis. Lots of different things under this umbrella. So it's exciting that we have figured this out, but it is intimidating, and it is a steep hill to climb if SIBO is a problem for you. The type of bacteria makes a difference in the symptoms. So we can't categorize, okay, you have SIBO, therefore you feel this. No, it depends on the type of bacteria present or the lack of, and then how much is the overgrowth. So we really want to distinguish between this if SIBO is suspected. For instance, a predominance of bacteria that metabolize bile salts to unconjugated or insoluble compounds may lead to fat malabsorption or bile acid diarrhea. In contrast, microorganisms that preferentially metabolize carbohydrates to short-chain fatty acids and gas may produce bloating without diarrhea because the metabolic products can be absorbed. Gram-negative coliforms such as Klebsiella species may produce toxins that damage the mucosa, interfering with absorption and causing leaky gut. So I do have a client, she had been working on healing leaky gut and she just couldn't figure it out. So when she came to me, what we did was we tested her stool and we found Klebsiella present. Well, she wasn't being treated for the Klebsiella, so that was a big part of diagnosing and treating and helping her overcome that and heal her gut lining. If she had never found that Klebsiella, then she would have never been able to heal that gut lining. She had been trying for almost a year and just had no luck, so she was getting very discouraged. So this slide there, I'm just going to read it to you. So there are 1 to 10 trillion bacteria in our intestinal tract. That is more cells than we have in our entire body, which is incredible that we have that much compacted into our intestinal lining. Most of these are in the large intestine. This is where they should be. So when they overgrow in the small intestine, digestion and absorption are disturbed, like we talked about. Because the small intestine is such an important part of our digestion system, overgrowth can set the stage for a number of acute and chronic conditions. So normal peristalsis and sphincter function should move ingested food and bacteria from the upper digestive tract into the large intestine. Failure to move the bacteria along will allow them to become established. So the ileocecal valve, very interesting. We'll have to do a video about the ileocecal valve, but we've actually found studies where if you have a problem with the ileocecal valve, which is the valve in between the ileum and the cecum, if you have issues with that, what can happen is your bacteria, if you have diarrhea, for instance, is going to run through the body and get displaced, and then your valve can actually be left open and bacteria can grow up into the jejunum and duodenum, and we talked about that's not really where we want it. Whereas constipation can be an issue where this valve is closed and it's stuck. It's stuck closed, so bacteria begin to ferment up into the ileum, the duodenum, and the jejunum. And what happens is they keep fermenting foods over and over and over again. And this is a lot of toxic waste being expelled into our bodies. So constipation is something that can be very dangerous, not only to our bowels and be uncomfortable, but it can end up being toxic to our brain. So if constipation is an issue, we really want to address this. Treatments down here on the bottom right, you can see several different things. Ileocecal massage is something we are finding to be beneficial. We'll have to do another video about that. Prebiotics, probiotics, we're going to address stomach acid, fix the diet, peppermint oil. All these different things are really great, and we'll talk a little bit more about these towards the end. All right. So I just want to talk about 5 ways that SIBO develops. So one being stomach acid. A lot of us are struggling with stomach acid. Let's just talk very briefly about this. So what happens whenever we ingest food, particularly fats and protein? Our stomach is provoked to release something called hydrochloric acid, pepsin, and intrinsic factor. All of these are important for digesting our foods. And with the diets and the amount of stress we're under today and the antibiotics and the environmental factors that come into play, this can really throw our stomach acid off. So when we have too low of stomach acid, we're not triggering our esophageal sphincter to close. And what can happen is it can backflow up into your esophagus and it can feel like excess stomach acid. So then we have doctors giving us proton pump inhibitors and taking Tums and doing things to decrease our stomach acid, but actually this just neutralizes it. It does not help us digest our food better, and it actually makes the problem worse long term. We actually need to increase our stomach acid to improve our digestion the majority of the time. Whenever we do have issues with stomach acid, we also have issues with absorbing our food and sterilizing it properly as well. So whenever we have issues sterilizing our food and keeping our stomach acid up, then we are creating an environment that can lead to pathogen overgrowth, or otherwise known as SIBO. Another thing, I kind of talked about this a second ago with the ileocecal valve, but with poor gut motility, this is whenever our gut's not moving, we're not having good peristalsis, so we struggle with either constipation or diarrhea. We don't have good bowel tone. Our gut relies on nerves, muscles, enzymes, and neurotransmitters to properly digest our food. So whenever something is wrong with that, and we have something like diarrhea or constipation, this can make our gut microbiome imbalanced. And I really talked about that earlier, so I'm not going to go into depth about it again. The next thing is intestinal neuropathy. So when this happens in a healthy gut, bacteria gets passed through the digestive tract along with the food to its final destination in the colon. Problems arise when motility is slow. This leads to food being stuck in the small and large intestine, where it ferments and creates a breeding ground for bacteria. This is a ripe environment for the development of SIBO. So that's something I kind of spoke about earlier too. So 2 and 3 are pretty similar, but if you have some kind of nerve issue, for instance, this reminds me of chiropractic. So if you have some type of issue with your spine where your nerves are not reaching your bowels appropriately, say there's just a little bit of subluxation going on, you have a little bit of pressure on a nerve. It may not be enough to be painful or completely sever the communication, but it is impairing. So your brain and your gut aren't communicating effectively, which can affect how your bowels are moving, which in turn can create an environment good for SIBO to grow. So the fourth one is physical obstructions. Physical obstructions in the gut, like scarring from surgeries or even Crohn's disease, can also cause an abnormal buildup of bacteria in the small intestine. So that is something to be aware of. Diverticuli, these are tiny pouches that can form in the wall of the small intestine, and they can also collect bacteria instead of passing it on to the colon. So this can cause an environment that is, ripe for SIBO to take place. So there's several different ways this can be caused. There are also medications that influence or disrupt the microbiome, such as antibiotics, proton pump inhibitors, or any other acid-blocking agent, even steroids. If you have taken any of these for a period of time, it makes you much more susceptible to developing SIBO. So I always ask my clients if they've been on these medications for a period of time. If they have been on any of these for more than 2 to 3 weeks at a time, I highly suspect they are dealing with some form of SIBO. These medications have a really, really big impact on our gut. So how do we test for SIBO? Well, there's a couple of different ways. The one that you see here, you can find this at drjockers.com. Go to the lab testing link. This is called the Complete Digestive Health Analysis. So this is actually a stool test you can do in the comfort of your own home. and you send the sample just as, as the directions tell you to do, and we will get the results and go over them with you. But this will identify how your gut defense is doing, your immune system is doing, as well as what bacteria are present and in what amount. This also tests for parasites and candida yeast overgrowth. So very helpful test. Another way that we do this is a breath test, but this one's kind of hard to administer because people have to go on a fast for 12 hours. They have to breathe into a small little balloon and ingest a precise amount of sugar and repeat the samples every 15 minutes for 3 or more hours. This is pretty time consuming. So if you can do that, that's great. I know that can be pretty difficult to do though. Another one, I talked a little bit about it earlier, is the organic acid test. We can actually see a few different types of bacterial overgrowth, the effects of the bacterial overgrowth on your neurotransmitters and vitamin B, all the vitamin B levels, and vitamin C, dopamine neurotransmitter, and serotonin neurotransmitter. We can also see candida yeast overgrowth. So the organic acid test is more of a great starter test. That's usually where I have my clients start, and then if we suspect that we need to dig deeper with the type of bacteria present, that's when we would go to the stool test that we just talked about. So let's talk about what we can do to overcome SIBO. So this is our protocol here. The first thing we do is remove. We remove the pathogens, the stressors, we take out the foods that can be causing the gut to become sensitive and tear through the intestinal lining. Anything that's going to impair that gut lining, we remove it. We also we'll talk a little bit more about this in a minute, but we will do some type of antimicrobial. And of course, the foods that we're using have antimicrobial properties, so that's great too. The second thing we'll do is replace. We'll replace the bad with the good. So we add back in the essential ingredients for proper digestion and absorption. So for instance, if we're having issues with stomach acid, we're going to try things like apple cider vinegar, lemon juice, lime. If that's not enough, then we'll resort to some kind of supplement that's going to help you increase stomach acid until it begins to improve on its own. But this is so important. You're not going to be able to overcome SIBO if you don't have good stomach acid levels. So we'll also repair the gut lining. I'm skipping, aren't I? Yeah. So we also reintroduce probiotics. So this is where we start to introduce things like kimchi and fermented vegetables, coconut water, kefir, things like that. And a good probiotic, typically what we'll do for people struggling with really severe cases of SIBO, instead of trying fermented vegetables, because this can be hard on the digestive system, what we'll do is actually start on Prescript Assist, which is a soil-based probiotic, and we find that our clients handle it really well. So that is where we like to start, and I'll talk about that in a moment too. So we also want to repair the gut lining. So we do things with glutamine, quercetin, gamma-linoleic acid, aloe vera, licorice root, turmeric, and omega-3. All of these things are so important for repairing the gut lining. We also use something called bone broth protein, or just a bone broth fast, or using bone broth throughout the day, just homemade bone broth, the kind your mama used to make when you got sick. And we'll make it from organic, grass-fed, pasture-raised animals. Always the highest quality, and our gut is really reaping the benefits. So this is the GI regulator. This is typically what we start with if we have some kind of yeast or bacterial overgrowth. So this is going to be a light antimicrobial. We do have other forms that are much stronger depending on the type of bacteria present and the severity of the case, but this is where we like to start. So this is going to have berberine, which is a plant alkaloid derived from a variety of herbs, such as the Oregon grapefruit. So this has a long history of use in Chinese medicine, and that's really where we got our studies for its effectiveness and safety. Berberine helps to destroy bacteria and other microbes. It improves insulin sensitivity, so it helps with blood sugar regulation. It also helps to balance neurotransmitters and helps to reduce inflammation and improve the strength and integrity of the gut lining. So berberine, very powerful. Grapefruit seed extract. This has pretty high potency, and this is going to be what helps kill off the bad bacteria. It's an antimicrobial, but it also has disease-fighting, free radical, eliminating antioxidants in it. So very powerful. A recent study from the Journal of Alternative and Complementary Medicine found that grapefruit seed extract was effective in killing over 800 bacterial and viral strains, 100 strains of fungus, and a large number of single and multi-celled parasites. So that's pretty incredible. Another thing in it is oregano oil. Oregano oil is a great antimicrobial. It's one of those, even if I just get a little cold or sniffly, I'm always taking oregano oil to help. So it's a super herb, rich in antioxidants, the flavonoids, phenolic acids. Oregano oil is also an extraordinarily powerful natural antibiotic. So oregano has been found in studies to be significantly better than all of the 18 currently used antibiotics in the treatment of MRSA, staph infections, and challenging microbial biofilms. The strong phenol antioxidants destroy pathogenic bacteria, viruses, and yeast. So I have my clients use GI Regulator, and those were the ingredients. Typically, we'll start out with 1 to 2 with each meal. And it's very light. It's not something I expect to see digestional upset with either. People tolerate it pretty well. So for individuals with small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, it is advisable to begin on a low FODMAP elimination diet for 30 days. So this is a picture of what all you would be taking out. We do have a program where we take these things out and give you a diet, give you the steps that you need to lay it out simple, because this is taking out a lot of food. So it's kind of like, okay, what can I eat? Well, relay that out for you. It's called the Healing Leaky Gut Program. You can email me at nutrition@drjockers.com if you have any more questions, but we like to spell it out for you and make it simple. But basically, what this does is remove foods that bacteria are fermenting higher up into your gut. So if you're not feeding the bacteria and you're using something to help kill them and you're not giving them a food source, they're going to die off and reduce SIBO. The GAPS diet approach, this is kind of similar. So you drink bone broth so that you're repairing the gut lining. You use coconut oil, grass-fed ghee. You eat low glycemic fruit. You introduce probiotic-rich foods slowly. So all of these things are also what we're going to have in the Leaky Gut program. So once again, if you want more information, just shoot me an email. But this is so important for not feeding the bacteria and then delivering natural antimicrobials to reduce the microbial load on the gut. We also don't eat pasteurized dairy. We only consume fermented raw as tolerated. I don't advise just going out and chugging raw milk. So you should definitely start small with 1/4 cup and increase from there. Include 1 tablespoon of fermented vegetable juice with each meal. That is also part of the GAPS diet approach. Some people don't tolerate that well, so we have a very systematic way of introducing that. So yeah, that is a little bit about the GAPS diet. So let's talk a little bit about probiotics. So you can see here the benefits of probiotics. Probiotics essentially are so important for creating healthy neurotransmitters, regulating our appetite, regulating our mood, and we want to make sure that we have the right kinds. It's also really important for fat burning. If we don't have the right kind of bacteria present, we're not going to break our foods down into short-chain fatty acids, which are so important for fat burning and weight loss. So it comes into a lot of different factors into our life. Here's the prescriptive cyst that I talked about earlier, and then down below that, this is just a SIBO support pack that we have. You can find that at drjockers.com. What that's going to have in it is the probiotic. The Thyro Liver Protect is going to help your liver detoxify. The charcoal is also going to help you absorb those toxins we talked about that can be harmful for the brain. Acid Prozyme, that's helping with our stomach acid. Here we spoke about glutamine for the gut lining, Super D-Zyme to help you break down your food, And the Wob enzyme down there on the end, that's going to help break down biofilm. Bacteria like to create something called a biofilm around themselves, and this is a protective mechanism. So if you're taking something to kill bacteria, but you're not breaking down their wall, then you're never going to reach them. So Wob enzyme is something we use to do that. It's also great for pain and decreasing inflammation. So I just want to touch lightly on 14 different strategies to beat SIBO, very briefly. So here are the best action steps to get started with on your journey to prevent and beat SIBO. You should always consult with your physician before stopping or changing medications or taking on new health strategies. You should also be working with a functional health practitioner to help guide you through these strategies. It does get complex, and I advise using someone who has studied it and know what they're doing. This is not an exhaustive list. There are other natural therapeutic strategies that I and other functional health practitioners will utilize, but here's the list. So bone broth fast. This is what we start out with SIBO cases. We'll do a 3 to 7 day bone broth fast. We'll use grass-fed beef, pasture-raised chicken, or even fish bones. But what you do is you create a broth from these. You can also do a vegetable broth, but it doesn't work as well. You actually need the nutrients from the bones. So what you'll do is you'll drink this, add pink Himalayan sea salt. You'll do this for about 3 to 7 days. You can also add ghee and MCT oil to give you a little energy boost throughout this. So this actually cleanses the gut and starves out the bacteria while providing the nutrients like proline and glycine that are necessary for the gut membrane to heal. You can have herbal teas, organic coffee, you can have coconut oil and ghee. So that's what we like to start out with. And then after that, what we'll do is a low FODMAPs diet. And that's what we'll do for 14 days. And after you finish the 14 days on the low FODMAPs diet, we'll progress into a GAPS diet. So this will be the next 14 days, and then we'll start to add in some fermented foods and beverages. So we do a slow reintroduction. We add higher FODMAP group foods back into your system slowly. Take one food, such as an avocado, add it back in for 3 days and see if you notice more gas or cramping and other digestive issues. If you do re-eliminate that food, we go back on the GAPS and FODMAP diet for 2 to 3 days and then try another food, such as an onion. So it is a slow process, but we see such great results. We know that it works. Hydration, so important for overcoming SIBO. Make sure you are drinking a ton of water. Aim to drink a minimum of half your body weight in ounces of water. Most individuals with SIBO respond really well to high amounts of water. It helps flush out bacteria from the system. It is advisable to use good pink salts. We talked about that. Pink Himalayan sea salt. So you can add in 1/4 teaspoon per 8 ounces. This also helps your adrenal glands. It helps stabilize that energy. Organic acids are really great to use with SIBO. People with SIBO typically respond well to small amounts of organic acids, and what I'm talking about with that is lemon juice and apple cider vinegar. So we'll add these to your waters and teas. We'll do like 1 to 2 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar per 8 ounces of water. You can also do 1/4 to half a lemon per 8 ounces of water, and you can do this all day long. Particularly the apple cider vinegar right before a meal. This is going to help increase stomach acid. Intermittent fasting is also really great. So intermittent fasting is where you'll only consume your foods between a 6 to 8 hour window, and the fasting helps to starve down the bacteria and reduce their count. It also helps enhance the healing process and the restoration of the gut lining. Liquid nutrition is huge. The less stress you can cause on your bowels during this process, the better you're going to do. So liquid nutrition, we do a lot of protein shakes with berries and coconut milk or grass-fed milk. We use protein powders, soup, stews, bone broth, green juices, herbal teas, coffee, all kinds of stuff like that. Doing some type of coconut water kefir and sauerkraut or kimchi juice early in the GAPS diet is also a great idea. So liquid nutrition. Number 9, we do add in fermented foods. We talked a little bit about those already. Oil pulling is also something that we do. So what you'll do is you'll take like a tablespoon of coconut oil and let it melt. Or if you're a trooper and you just want to toss it in your mouth and start, go for it. But most people don't tolerate that very well. So make sure you melt the coconut oil. You'll put it in your mouth. You'll swish it around. You'll try to do this for 2 minutes at a time, and then you can spit it out. But this is a great antimicrobial and helps cleanse the mouth and cleanse the intestinal tract by doing this. It helps pull out a lot of toxins. Number 11, we get moving and get regular sunlight. So exercise is huge. We want our movement to have light intensity, so we need to be walking. And this also helps increase bowel transit time, but we also want to introduce high intensity interval training. So, if you can dedicate just 15 minutes a day to working out and moving your body, then this is a great way to help your body overcome disease and SIBO. Getting adequate amounts of vitamin D is huge for overcoming any kind of disease. So we want to be outside. You want to get grounded. You want to touch nature, submerge yourself in nature. And if you're not getting enough sun exposure, which likely you aren't, we need to be exposing our trunk areas, meaning our thighs and our abdomen, for 30 minutes a day, minimal, to get enough sun exposure. And on top of that, we're most likely using sunscreen. So vitamin D deficiency is extremely common. So what you're going to do is either go outside, expose your trunk areas, or take a supplement, vitamin D, and you'll need to either take it with K or eat it with green leafy vegetables and some type of fat substance so that you absorb it appropriately. Number 12, we're going to improve gut motility. There's different ways we can do that. We've kind of already touched on that. Ginger is really great for improving gut motility. And just eating the diet that we suggest is going to help you move things along. The digestive support pack that we talked about, that's another strategy. And then the last one I want to talk about is implementing an advanced SIBO support supplement program. And this is really where a healthcare practitioner is going to be helping you. So I would advise getting in contact with someone who is familiar with SIBO. So that is it for today. Thank you for joining. This is myself and Dr. David Jockers. Like I said, we work locally with people at Exodus Health Center, and we also work long distance. We will look over your lab work, come up with a customized plan for you. If you're interested, just shoot me an email at nutrition@drjockers.com. I'd be happy to work with you.